DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
All right. So, NightWatchman, I don't want to have you known necessarily as the cannabis czar in terms of Soul Lounge Primetime, but you are.
Yeah, well, that's I'm the star of Soul Lounge Primetime. I don't think I'm going to put that on a business card. But
okay.
We have been known to cover this topic. There's been a lot going on, and so we're soliciting a couple of people who know a lot about what's going on and can keep us informed. So,
okay. Well, NightWatchman, as a matter of fact, I understand this past week, the governor opened it up and said, hey, legal licensing shall proceed, or do tell. Is that
well?
what
Let's bring our experts out, and
Okay.
they're going to bring us up. So, first person we're bringing up is Wei Hugh. He is a cannabis attorney, one of the best ones in the state. He also teaches cannabis law at where are you teaching? CUNY
School of Law. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, hold on. Wait, are you telling me they have an actual course on cannabis law?
a lot of most law schools across New York State actually do have cannabis law courses. It's a big industry. It's now legal, and with it comes a lot of new legal nuances. So, CUNY School of Law was, forward vision thinking enough to really think about how do we really bring this into the marketplace safely, under the regulations, and really teach and inform the public how to safely and legally operate a cannabis business. So CUNY School of Law is definitely forward thinking and implemented one of the earlier courses. And I was so glad to have designed the curriculum and also teach it last semester. So quite a unique experience.
Excellent. Welcome, my brother, for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Who else do we have, NightWatchman?
We have our friend Bruce from New York City Cannabis Industry Association. He is what I would call a cannabis activist / entrepreneur. He's well versed on all of the nuances of what's going on in New York's legal cannabis industry, and he's opinionated. So that's why we love him.
And NightWatchman, I think didn't we meet Bruce at a forum that was being held at Marcus Meets Malcolm?
That's right. We met him. We were the MCs for a cannabis event that was held by Community Board number 10, and let's see, Tremaine Wright was there, and Dr. Stephen Robinson, and
wow.
This was one of the kind of educational events that happened. This was last year. This was in 2022. So we've actually known Bruce for a while now.
Hey, so Bruce, do tell. Hey, where you been, buddy? Talk to me.
Well, I've been a restaurant owner for 3 decades. I've been the director of operations for the New York City Cannabis Industry Association for 3 years.
Nice.
And somewhere in there, I also became a Whole Foods vendor.
Oh, okay.
Selling chili. And so there's a lot of correlation between what you need to do to survive in the restaurant business and in the food business in general and in the cannabis industry.
Excellent. And NightWatchman, I'm just throwing it out there. Next time you have people, especially people who may be vendors of food or other products, Bruce, remember, bring samples, okay?
Got it. I didn't know that was a prerequisite. I'm unprepared, gentlemen.
Well, we've been trying to get our cannabis guests to bring us samples too, but it doesn't always work.
You got to make live appearances, guys.
Absolutely.
So, don't we have delivery yet? Come on.
Well, NightWatchman, you want to get it popping? Go ahead, buddy.
So, Wei, maybe you can start out by just kind of bringing our listeners and viewers up to speed on where things are now in New York State's legal cannabis industry. A lot has happened in the last few weeks. So maybe you could just kind of give us a quick overview.
No, thank you so much, Bob. It's almost feel like it's almost an entire decade happened in the last few months. Long story short, October 4th, open applications, you know. You have retail license, 500 to 1,000 retail licenses.
Wow.
And
Wow.
especially for those entrepreneurs with real estate in hand, highly recommend all of you apply before November 4th for expedited review. But there's a 60-day window to apply for a dispensary license, to apply for a cultivator, processor, and micro business adult use cannabis licenses. So really short window, 60 days. And you know, people are submitting nonstop. Fees are about $500 to $1,000 per application. And you know, what's unfortunate, and OCM has kind of all described this is quote unquote randomized selection. So
Wow.
even some people might call it a lottery, some people come because they're randomized, but it's not really based upon anyone's qualifications or experience. But we are trying, New York State is trying to select a diverse background with focusing on people who are minorities, who are women, service-disabled veterans, distressed farmers, and people who have been affected and living in communities disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. So there are definitely priority groups, and that's sort of the big news. But behind all this right now is that since August, there's been a big portion of what's called the provisional licensees being caught up in a lawsuit. It's the Fiore lawsuit. And so around New York State, there are about 24 dispensaries plus delivery operations that are licensed right now. There's another 450 waiting to open. But unfortunately, because of this lawsuit, they halted OCM's licensing authority. We do
Wow.
think in the next few months, people who, including many of my clients who've been spending money on rent, have employees who have changed jobs, you know, stop paying their residential mortgages so they can vote to their business. They want to get started. They need to recoup all the money they invested. So just today, there's another hearing to let a group of people try to get people out of the injunction and to let them open their doors and start sales. So very exciting times in New York all at one time.
Wow.
Wait, let me ask you. What about consumption lounges? Are those licenses also open now, or?
Oh, great question, man. Everyone's complaining about the smell of cannabis in New York, right? Everyone's consuming it outdoors. Hey, why can't we people consume it safely, legally, in a private space? Unfortunately, we're not there yet. You know, they're not even up for application this round. If you look at the experience of Colorado, it took them over 10 years since the first adult use sales to then even open their lounges. In California, it's over a decade. So, you know, these are some of the things that as cannabis gets legalized, we want to have society shift and adapt with us to first really accept legalized sales. And there's always a lag between public acceptance of legalized and licensed consumption facilities. So not yet, not within, you know, not from this application period, but hopefully soon enough, the state will be offering consumption lounge licenses for application.
Gotcha. You know, one of the things that, okay, and let me back up for a second. When we talked about, let's say, this particular injunction brought by certain activists, let's say, from upstate, I understood that there may have been a darker part there in that. It wasn't just, you know, equity or whatnot. There was some other things going on. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit? Let me know.
Yeah, you know, it's a really unfortunate situation. I think a cohort of about 5 or 6 veterans sued because they're saying, hey, I'm a service disabled veteran. I should be able to apply. But, you know, really in their lawsuit, they're really hindering 15 other service disabled veterans under the CARD program. So there's about 5 or 6 saying, hey, we didn't get an opportunity to apply because we didn't have the prior cannabis conviction. So we're going to sue and try to stop the program.
Gotcha.
You know, but what I think we're not really acknowledging is that there are about 15 other service-disabled veterans who did get a license, dispensary license, under the conditional retail dispensary licensing program. So darker forces, certainly there's gossip out there, you know, who's funding them.
Right.
You know, there's certainly a lot of money to really, commence a lawsuit and litigation in New York State. And there's definitely been speculation and gossip in terms of who's ultimately funding this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Bruce.
Well, before we go to
Go
Bruce,
ahead. Mhm.
okay, so how does, now that all of the licenses have kind of opened up, how does that impact that litigation?
Oh, great question. So I had a conversation with someone at OCM yesterday. I said, hey, listen, Judge Bryant in his August 18th decision and order said, once open applications is open for everyone, it quote unquote renders this arguably moot.
Okay.
And so now, the whole crux of the lawsuit was like, hey, we couldn't apply. There's a law saying we all have to has to be allowed to apply at the same time. And so now this factual situation has come into reality. So, based upon the judges already thinking that be arguably moot, one would think the Attorney General's office would file a motion to dismiss
Right.
based upon mootness grounds. And now that the plaintiffs can apply the same rights as what they complained about, what's left in the lawsuit? So, many cannabis attorneys in this industry are asking the exact same question. Hey, now that the plaintiffs' claims have been met, the open application, why is this lawsuit still going on? And so it's deeply puzzling to me why it's still going on as well. There's also an appeal in the third department in Albany. So there's many ways. So the state is doing its best to challenge this through an appeal, through the what's called an intervenor process to get individual provisional licensing out of the injunction. And they're also going to be obviously fighting this and continuing it on before Judge Bryant in the trial court as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And Bruce, so do tell me. So we certainly do know that in terms of the opening up the for adult use happened under the previous government under Cuomo. How have you felt that the state has moved forward in really addressing equity and also rapidity, the speed of which it's been opening? I knew that would get you, Bruce. I knew that. Go ahead.
You trying to ask like a complex question or something? It's such a maddening time. I mean, I think that Wade did a great job in sort of talking about how it's all happened at once. Mm-hmm. The law is fabulous. The law is the best law that any state has passed, acknowledging the debt it owes to the most harmed communities and dedicating 50% of licenses to social economic equity applicants.
Yes.
Fabulous. Speed?
Uh-oh.
Huh. Well, yeah, I don't see speed happening. And one of my basic questions, and I'd really love to hear, have weigh in on this. But why, when we have a regulatory structure with the state liquor authority, was that not just simply looked at and said, okay, yeah, let's do that. That's worked. It's working. We don't have any problems. Let's just do that. Wade, do you have any insight as to what would have happened in the back rooms that made that not possible?
Listen, I think there are a lot of factions in government that see cannabis differently. You obviously have the true believers, which is people in the Office of Cannabis Management that truly believe in social equity and social justice within this industry. Then you have sort of the lobbyists out there, right? Putting money in the governor, donating to the governor's office, state senate campaigns, Republican campaigns, and they see it differently. I think there are various parts of government, or quote unquote more old school and more traditional. You can think about the DA's offices throughout the state. You think about sort of the criminal justice system that's historically seen marijuana equals crime. So government is moving at different speeds. OCM sees the value of a regulated legal system. There may be other actors within government that don't see it necessarily the same way. You think about DASNY and its role in its implementation and, the success that's brought, which is unfortunately quite limited. Discussions amongst the industry, whether or not it was deliberate, in terms of their execution. So many concerns, from the cannabis attorneys as well as the industry participants insofar as how committed are various branches of government to making this happen? Because OCM is fully there. They believe in reparative and restorative justice. Redressing the historic war on drugs, ensure the right people get priority, and that may not be the same interests as other elected officials.
Gotcha.
Because of lobbying. And that's all I wanted to say thus far. So
okay, well, that was a very judicious response. I appreciate
but well balanced. Yes.
Yeah. I don't feel so well balanced about it, but then I cut all my law school classes, so that's what happens when you don't go to law school. But I don't. There are a great many people in the cannabis space who are advocating for simpler regulations, and that's in response to the draft regulations that came out last, I guess, 10 months ago at this point, in December. And then we all put comments in at the beginning of February saying, please, this is what you need to change. And then they didn't change anything.
Gotcha.
Way correct me if I am wrong about that. They changed de minimis things about the law, but not substantively. And there's just a sense of overregulation. And I just, having been a restaurant owner and having gotten state liquor authority licenses multiple times, I don't understand how the powers that be don't acknowledge that alcohol is more dangerous and more addictive than cannabis. And so why are we, the marketing rules are bananas. You have to have a grayed out window.
Right.
You can't see in. Liquor stores, you can see in, they put products in the window. We're talking about marketing. You want this industry to be successful or not?
Yes. Right.
So whose idea was it to treat these? It's a perpetuation of the stigma to say we don't want anybody looking in. I don't know what that does.
It's for the children. We have to save the children.
Well, now you've done it, Bob. Chris, now if you talk about saving the children, then we got to talk about the unlicensed stores.
We did that.
I don't know why you did that, Bob.
Well, and we do know it's coming.
NightWatchman. Mr. NightWatchman.
Bruce, you make a great point. I just want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Fair in Syracuse each year, they have it annually. They're so proud of all of New York State's vendors, all of whether it's from the agricultural sector, the craft brewing of New York, the apple ciders, the hard ciders. You have all these alcohols and spirits on the fairgrounds of New York State Fair. But we had a cannabis growers showcase where adults could legally purchase cannabis, and they demanded it be held off-site.
Wow.
Cannabis is still the black sheep of adult quote unquote products. I don't know why. Unfortunately, we had that site was placed across from a highway. You take a shuttle bus from the state fair to access legal cannabis. And when you have liquor, beer, and spirits all on the fairground. So it's very interesting how New York State treats it differently.
And Way, on that particular note, and Bob, I'm going to refresh your memory and tell me you remember this. When we were at one of the early cannabis forums at HBA, right? And one of the presenters was talking about some of the real serious pushback, right, was coming from, let's get quote unquote, the black church, right? So Way, in terms of your observation, in terms of quote unquote ethnic communities, has there been strong pushback, or has there been a gradual acceptance of this is a policy that needs to be changed?
Great question. I actually I went with OCM, the spokesman, Jason Salmon, from OCM, and we both did a community education program in a historically black church in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite interesting to both try to balance the awareness of cannabis, the change in law, while at the same time there were 13 and 14-year-olds from the local high school football team sitting in the back. You know, what's really challenging is how do you really get cannabis away from the youth, because you know it affects children and teenagers, and they're using them at very
Yes.
high rates.
Right.
They should not be consuming cannabis, and they should not be consuming alcohol. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I think the historically black churches are leading the community and saying, "Hey, we're fine with adults consuming it in private, if they use it responsibly."
Mm-hmm.
It's getting out of control now with these legacy stores selling to minors. Um,
Mm.
are they affecting the learning process of these children? Are they coming to school, quote unquote, intoxicated from cannabis?
Got it.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we also got to focus on. How to expand the rights for adults while making sure that our children are not being impacted. And that's what's unfortunately a lot of what pastors are seeing in lower income neighborhoods, in certain schools, that students do consume cannabis before even going to class. And that's tremendously, unfortunate. And that's the tension that we have to really work on as
Gotcha.
industry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So one of the things, and Bruce, you mentioned this. You come from the restaurant industry. Of course, you've dealt with SLA numerous times. One of the things I certainly do know, let's say in a cigar lounge, they do not allow, let's say, a food for a cannabis consumption lounge. Will food be allowed?
Well, those regulations, the standalone consumption lounge licenses haven't been issued. They haven't even done the draft regulations. What they have done to this point, and it's really to deal with the public complaints about people purchasing from a legal store and then standing outside and smoking. They've allowed,
Mm.
if you have enough space, to set up a consumption space within the regulated dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then, and I we're on video here. I can't show you how large those words "but then" should be.
Mm-hmm.
You can only sell water.
Wow.
You can't sell food. You can't sell anything else. And I'm not even sure you can. And again, Wei, I'm sorry to keep referring to you as the expert here, but you're, I think, not able to even have a POS system in that space. You have to buy the water outside and then go in. Am I right about that?
No, it's it's a great question. So with the ancillary consumption lounge permit that goes to the dispensaries, that was only a recent creation. It's they didn't think about it in the original creation of MRTA. It's only because of community concerns and industry concerns that OCM was responsive enough to add this additional element to dispensaries. So the one absolute is that alcohol and cannabis do not mix. No
Wow.
cannabis where there's alcohol, and no cannabis where and no alcohol where there's cannabis. That's the 100% absolute guarantee. I think once OCM sees, daylight, in the sense that people may want a coffee, people may want a soft drink,
Mm-hmm.
people may want some bread,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they see common sense and they realize, certain regulations can't be relaxed, and have a safe functioning consumption lounge.
Gotcha.
So, in that context, Wei, what is the future of edibles and infused beverages, and where does that fit into the picture?
Oh man, thankfully, Bob, that's the one. New York City did it right. The future's bright. That's all I gotta say. We complain about the regulations, like, man, it's like a stack of papers this thick, overly prescriptive, overly regulatory, but they were quite thoughtful in terms of the edibles. That's where they really had a lot of community outreach. They're thinking about chocolates, gummies. They're thinking about more healthy products. They're talking about nano emulsification for water soluble, THC products. You're having it in seltzers, so you don't need to get the calories with the THC. And the thing of being very careful in terms of what THC cannot be mixed with. You think about, growing up in my days, Four Loko. I don't know, you drank that and you really we had quite another experience for the next few hours. So I mean, we don't want to see like the THC version of Four Loko, So I think that's where the regulations have been a little bit helpful, and really, there's they enumerated about 20 different items that THC can go into, and about 15 to 20 that cannabis could not go into. The list is very long, but they clearly have put a lot of thought and energy and time into thinking about this.
Now, what are the specific licenses for that?
Processor.
Mhm.
So the processor license is where you get all the bang for the buck. You do extraction, extract the THC from the flower itself, and you can also process and manufacture, which is another class, and you can do packaging and labeling. Very dynamic, very flexible, but it's very capital intensive also. You want to do water soluble nanoemulsification in order to get sort of packets, like freeze dried packets of THC, just drop in water and you can just consume it that way.
Wow.
Very expensive machinery to do that, in bulk. Distillation and extraction equipment are very big pieces of equipment, and very costly to run also. But so with the risk and investment comes reward of being able to produce very unique products for the industry.
And now, what about distribution? Now, do all the edible products also need to be distributed strictly through the licensed dispensaries?
Oh, great question, Bob. For the last 2 years, our growers and processors were able to quote unquote self-distribute through their own operations. If there was their own product, they could bring it directly to one of the 24 retail stores. Now there are going to be more stores, so OCM is going to be issuing 30 distribution licenses statewide.
Wow.
The mom and pop growers and the processors that don't want to drive from Buffalo all the way down to New York.
Right.
About cannabis, the flower is very light. Hey, you put it in the back of a car, it'll fit. When you talk about beverages, THC beverages, different ballgame, consumer packaged goods, whether it's in chips, big fluffy potato chips, with THC. Distribution can be a lot more complicated than an eighth of a flower. So a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential for the distribution license going forward.
So I have a problem having manufactured food. I have a problem with the fact that the OCM, and this is a comment I submitted to them twice. Why are edibles only prepackaged?
Okay.
You talked about coffee bars. Coffee bars are the perfect consumption lounge. When coffee bars are allowed to be able to get a cannabis license, they should be able to bake their own products. The difference between something that is fresh baked, a fresh baked brownie, and something that is prepackaged, made a week or two earlier, sitting on a shelf with preservatives.
Right.
It's like they don't. I mean, I feel like they didn't talk to any coffee shop owners. They didn't talk to any restaurant owners, as far as I know. They certainly didn't call me. But there's that's a whole aspect of what a consumption lounge can be that is impossible because they've made it, as Way has said, that you have to have all this expensive equipment.
So that also means that you can't do an infused restaurant, I guess.
Right.
Is that correct? Wow.
Right.
So what are we talking? No farm to table, literally.
You talked earlier, I guess Way talked earlier about the programs that New York State has gotten behind, and it was Andrew Cuomo who came up with, or whose administration did the Grown in New York program, and it revived the distillery industry. there are probably 60, 70 New York State. If you grow it in New York,
Yeah.
you have a very inexpensive license.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also have sampling at your facility.
Yes, yes.
Lovely. I mean, the apple cider industry, the beer industry, grown and raised in New York. And way to your quite accurate point, why aren't we doing this with cannabis?
Well, I think you've hit on what I think is one of the most important aspects of this. Right now we're stuck in that difficult time of just getting stores open and getting things up and running. But I think if we look a couple of years down the road, the key to this industry in New York is creating a culture of what New York cannabis is supposed to be about. And what I've seen from the interactions I've had with some of the legacy growers who are now in the process of being licensed, that there's a craft to it. And just like craft beer, just like wine, just like spirits, there should be a sense of competition and expertise, and there should be an opportunity to develop a New York state of cannabis, if you will, about the quality of cannabis that actually comes out of the state, so that we don't get genericized. Because I don't think that New York can win by trying to just put out the most generic cannabis. I think New York wins by putting out the best cannabis. And I feel like, how do we develop that that culture here, if you will, that would drive our business?
So, Bob, I really hope this is just the start. This is quote unquote literally the start. But I think figuratively, I think hopefully it's also just the start of the New York cannabis industry. We're just building the foundation of this, and part of it is trying to work on destigmatization and really community acceptance, especially from neighborhoods that traditionally have used this cannabis very negatively. So, we don't even have indoor licenses yet.
Wow.
Please tell them about how do we become a leader in cannabis. Number one, start off by permitting pure play indoor grow. That's number one. Yeah, our foods, everything edible needs to be in the regulations called shelf stable. So the potency, the THC cannot vary from production to when it's being consumed by the end consumer. So I think we're being very prescriptive, very tight guardrails in terms of where we could head. So hopefully that is only so we could at least head in the right direction before we go off on our tangents and really add the bells and whistles. But you're absolutely right. To be first class, we need indoor flower. We need infused products being made fresh. And we just definitely need much more flexible regulations. But like I said, this is just a start. Hopefully it won't be the future by any means.
And you know what? Okay, so let's say I've been consuming cannabis for many years, right? I know my guy down the street. I've been dealing with him. He gives me a certain price. He seems to know his product, right? So now we have this legal dispensary, which, as we know, has the let's say taxes and other things applied on it. So the price point is a lot higher, man. But what is the benefit? Somebody please weigh in on that.
Well, quality control, for one thing.
Well, quality control. I mean,
okay.
There's a
Go ahead.
study. There's a study that just came out. Leafly republished the study that talked about how much cannabis, the hemp plant, absorbs heavy metals from the ground, and they did it's an amazing study. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a serious study in the sense that it was 2005 to 2013. And they had 7,245 subjects, and they found that consuming unregulated, untested cannabis, those people had much higher levels of lead and cadmium in their bloodstreams.
Gotcha.
And so, this is, for my money, this adds, this creates a complete gigantic health crisis with all of the unlicensed stores that we have. It's not just that they're taking money away from the legal stores, from the regulated stores, the stores that need the business. What they're selling is dangerous.
Gotcha.
Dangerous to your health in capital letters. And so we need to move way more quickly than we have been. And the governor has just announced, and I applaud the fact that the state is trying, but they just announced on Monday a new set of parameters that are going to enable counties to go after the unlicensed stores. They're going to allow the Workers' Compensation Board and the Department of Labor to go after the unlicensed stores, and all of that's wonderful. However, the announcement is that after 4 months, they have inspected 246 stores. All right. If there are 2,000 stores, that's 2.5 years at that rate.
Gotcha.
If there are 4,000 stores, we're talking 5.2 years.
Yes.
Can we do this today? And that's why I'm reaching out to community boards and to the business improvement districts in every part of the city, housing associations, and actually this conversation has made me realize I need to reach out to the Black churches. I need to identify where they are, their address, identify the landlord, which allows me to identify their mortgage holder and also the insurance company. So, that to me, we can't begin to solve the problem until we know where they are.
Well, certainly, Bruce and Wei, one of the things that we certainly do know that, especially before the legal adult use came on board, we were talking about enforcement and how certain communities were really severely targeted. So now we're talking about licensed, unlicensed. So in terms of enforcement, how do we think that might play itself out? Should the unlicensed be given a warning first, continue then doing what they do, then the more severe or harsher penalty should be implemented? What do you say, Wei?
Great question. Bruce, this is where Bruce and I kind of, diverge a little bit. Legacy cannabis has been in New York for over 100 years. Except for instances where it's mixed with fentanyl, with other dangerous narcotic, people haven't died from legacy cannabis. People have been consuming legacy cannabis, especially for the last few decades, at very high rates. And we don't see the public health crisis. I'm one of the believers that the licensed and the unregulated, unlicensed market are two separate entities. That if we want to compete against legacy, we just got to offer a better product, a better service. You're right; they're not being taxed, but they're also, the consumers who are going to these stores generally have less disposable income. And generally, have less wealth to really go and really, go into the licensed shops. So it's definitely a struggle. It's definitely a problem. When you add tax, you're just passing it on to consumer. This is all a social good, right? This is all a plant. This is all for all of us. And when you add taxation, it decreases access. And the last thing I want is really to go back to the historic war on drugs and disproportionately affect minority communities. I do believe that there is an absence of licensed dispensaries in low-income neighborhoods, and until there's a presence and access, I don't personally have a problem with someone trying to fill the void. We definitely need more licensed stores out there, compete and offer a better product and a better service, and also give the reassurance that they're not foreign substances there, and whatever contained on the packaging is what the customer gets. That is the way I believe that the licensed industry should compete. And there's going to be home grow allowed. How do you regulate home grow when people can grow up to 12 plants in their own house?
Wow.
How do
So
you
that was
sales exist?
I had a follow-on question about that. So where are we on home grow? Because that was in the original MRTA, but it seems like the way behind every other thing is home grow. So is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the law said 18 months after the first legal sale. So the first
Mhm.
legal sale was, I think, Housing Works of December of last year, December 20th, whatever, 28, 29.
So we're looking at next
Down
summer.
18 months from there, I think we're looking at, sometime in June.
Right.
Mm.
Got you.
Yeah. Well,
I also want to ask you, Wei, let's talk about the supply side. And so we mentioned the fact we don't have indoor grow, so we have outdoor growing. I know there was something going on where they were allowing some of the growers to go to, I don't know, something like a farmer's market and sell some of their product because they were stuck in this loop about not having enough dispensaries to distribute what they had already grown. So how is that working, and how did that work out?
Me or Bob
Yes,
or
yes. You Wei.
Bruce.
Bruce.
Wei.
Okay, yeah, no, it's a pilot program. It's a temporary band-aid until the end of the year. It's
Mm-hmm.
called the Cannabis Grower Showcase.
Mhm.
Finally being set up in towns where they didn't opt out, but there are no brick and mortar dispensaries yet. So,
Mm-hmm.
if they created in order to alleviate the supply, quote unquote, glut and the cannabis deserts. They did do a sort of a band-aid until through the end of the year, whereby cultivators, processors, and a retailer all band together and operate a temporary, quote unquote, pop-up sales outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Gotcha. Hey, so let's say, and Bruce, you too on this particular one. So let's say I'm a user. I suffer from anxiety, major anxiety. Uh, in New York State, a medical license. It seems like we no longer even discuss that. I mean, has there been any move to really a certain resurgence in that particular space, because there are a lot of New Yorkers who do consume, and they'll also fall under the adult use because it's easier thing, but they suffer from anxiety and other maladies that make cannabis use uh, good for them, beneficial. Thoughts on that, Bruce?
Well, I think Wade can be a little more specific about this, but I
Hmm.
think that this current set of um, rules and the licenses that have just opened, they have opened up additional opportunities for the medical companies to expand. Am I
Mm.
correct, Wade? They've added, they've loosened the number that they can have, and they've also allowed the medical companies to go into the retail space,
Gotcha.
the adult use
Uh
space. So I think that they're trying.
huh. Okay.
Whether they're trying hard enough,
Hmm. Mm.
I think that the former governor really put handcuffs on the medical industry
Mm.
by limiting them. You read about what's happening in other states with the medical industry,
Hmm.
and it far outstrips. We have a fragment of our population that has access to medical cannabis and to the medical cannabis dispensaries. There aren't nearly enough of them.
Gotcha. Yes.
Am I correct in describing what they've done as expanding the opportunity for the ROs?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding was that the medical operators were expected to wait 3 years before participating in the adult use industry. That
Mm.
time frame has been accelerated, unfortunately, to the detriment of the social justice and economic equity operators. So, there's a conversion license and fee for them to enter in on December 29th of this year
Hmm.
to begin adult use sales.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
so,
Yeah.
in terms of their expansion and their number of dispensaries that they can now open up adult use, is there a number attached to
Eight.
that fee?
There are going to be 8 stores converting.
Mm-hmm.
The law requires that the medical operators have at least 4 medical dispensaries in order to convert one of them. So there's only 8 operators in New York State that can convert. So there's going to be 8 conversions.
I hadn't heard that number before. I didn't realize. Yeah. I would like to go back, if I may, to
Yes.
the issue of there are 2 kinds of markets. I think there are 3.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is the regulated market, the stores that are licensed. There are the unlicensed stores, the stores that have LED lights ringing their front window and bongs in the front window. And then there's the legacy market. Okay, I think that there are 3. That's what I see. And I've actually heard that there's quite a bit of, shall we say, consternation on the part of the legacy growers, the people that have been referred to that have been doing this for 100 years, because the unregulated stores, the unlicensed stores, are taking business away from them.
Gotcha.
And they are selling untested product. The reason that we have not had a problem, the health problem, with regard to the legacy dealers, is the legacy dealers care about what they're selling. And as a separate conversation, there needs to be a path for legacy to legal, something that everybody seems to agree on, but no one wants to talk about.
Well, I agree with you, Bruce. I've heard the same things. And I think Way was echoing the same types of comments, that there is a legacy market that has been growing here for, way before any of us got here. And that market does care about their consumers. They have had standards, and no one has had problems, and those markets I would suggest still have their regular customers, because why would you not go back to the person if you've been consuming with somebody for weeks, months, years, decades, and you know that the product is good. I believe I agree with you that the unlicensed shops represent more of carpetbaggers and interlopers, and I think that there's not necessarily a commitment to the quality. And the other thing that we have to contend with is, our laws require licensed product to be grown in New York State, whereas there's a lot of unlicensed products that come from other venues that undercut the price, and there's no quality control on it. So if there are excess coming out of Oregon and California and some of those places out west,
Oklahoma,
that's true. Oklahoma has a lot coming out of it too. But what we don't know is quality control, and the way it gets to us, there's no way to tell unless people start randomly testing their weed, which there's no framework for that happening either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the big issue for me is the fact that these unregulated stores are in close proximity to schools. DJ LeRoy, you pointed this out.
Yes.
And I will tell you that if there's anything that is beyond unacceptable, it's this. There was an article published in the New York Times by Ashley Southall that she was sitting in the classroom in the Bronx and could see a store called Puff Puff Pass One through the window, diagonally across the street. And she watched the students go in, come out, light up, put it out, and come to school.
Wow.
All right. I attended a rally in Community Board 5 in Brooklyn that I showed up at and was just shocked. There's a store. It's right across the street. Okay. I did a Google Maps. I use Google Maps to sort of show distance between 2 points. And it's 1 minute, 270 feet, 1 minute between this store and the middle school.
Incredible.
And then in my own neighborhood, I have watched kids go into an unlicensed store and come out and split the purchase and go on their way. And so this is not just that it's untested, It's that it's untested and they're selling to children.
So you know what, and Bruce, no, you made a good point. We talk about the three sides to this: unlicensed, licensed, and legacy. So I'm hearing from you, Bruce, that maybe the legacy, that they do indeed care about their product and their customer base. Okay, so but we have to then look at enforcement. How should let's say the legacy be enforced? How can they be encouraged to become part of the legal market? What do you think? What carrots or incentives can be given?
My friend David C. Holland has written what I think is a brilliant paper that creates a mechanism within the state that allows the legacy dealer to come above ground, pay a small fine related to the taxes that they would have paid, puts them through a series of questions to determine that they really were in the business. They really do know the business. And frankly, for my part, if we want delivery to be successful, those are the people who should be getting delivery licenses.
Yes. Gotcha.
That's the business they've been in. That's the business they should be in. And we need to encourage them. I mean, it's, again, I guess it's actually a year now that I attended an event where a legacy person named Umi, who is a pretty well-known music personality as well, got a standing ovation when he talked about there has to be an on-ramp for legacy to become legal. And then that was it.
Wow.
So I would love to find a way to push that conversation into being. That's the way to do it.
Well, I mean,
give them amnesty, give them protection from any state laws, from taxation. They admit what they've been doing, and then they get a license.
Gotcha.
There is a potential that that's happening more behind the scenes. One thing I can tell you is that, and we've had Damian Fagan, the cannabis equity officer, on the show multiple times. And before he had that position, he was very, very actively engaging legacy producers about the process. So I believe that process is happening. We've definitely spoken, and we've had some legacy producers on the show who are in the licensing process. So I think that that's occurring, and I think that there's kind of an understanding that there are these three different lanes. So I'm hoping that over the course of the next year or so, we'll see those things resolved. We'll see the step up in enforcement that we all want to see in terms of the unlicensed shops, and we'll see an opportunity for New York's legacy producers to actually do what they do well and do it in a legal framework.
Absolutely. And you know what? And Wade, give me some of your thoughts in terms of, let's say, legacy, unlicensed, and of course, the legal market.
Oh, thank you. I want to say I have to jump off in a minute, but thank you so much for having me, number one, to really share my thoughts and opinions. I just got another meeting starting soon, but listen, I think they're all different facets of the New York cannabis industry. New York didn't have legal cannabis until 2021. Clearly, we've had one of the most robust cannabis cultures in the world. So we consume cannabis by far more than any other place per capita by multiples. So to say that there's no place for legacy in New York, it's not necessarily, that's not a very pragmatic way of thinking.
Yes.
There's a question of how do you really involve the legacy culture and the community into the licensed market. And I think that's one of the challenges OCM is facing, and which makes their job very challenging. But really a lot of, there's definitely great ideas put out there by you guys. And thank you so much again for having me.
Well, wait. Okay, there it goes. That's good. NightWatchman, you put up.
I want to just tell people how they can contact you, especially if you are in the market. There are a lot of very, very good attorneys around. Wade is certainly one of them. So
Yes.
use those. Use that email address. Go to his website, and if you have more questions, go talk to him. Wade, do you have any?
Follow him on LinkedIn.
That's right. Follow him on LinkedIn. Yes.
Right.
Wade, do you have any final things you want to share? Because we're in wrap up mode at this point in time, anyway. So
no, I mean, thank you again for shining light on this and really bringing information back to the community. Information should be free. People shouldn't spend part of their life savings to figure out where they are in the process or really how to advance themselves. So thank you for the work that you guys do to really put the information out there and make it accessible so that people don't have to dig deep into their pockets information. So thank you for doing God's work, and I wish you guys a good weekend. All right.
All right, great.
And Night Watchman, I do believe that Wade will be invited back to the barbecue. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
He likes barbecue.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, my brother. All right. Very nice.
Bruce, do you have any final comments you want to share as we kind of wrap this show up?
Well, I am, again, as a restaurant owner and as someone who did a little retail consulting for a friend who has a liquor store, I'm incensed that the unlicensed stores have been able to become so out of control.
Yes, yes.
If you can open an unlicensed store around the corner, down the street from any regulated store, and there are no consequences, not to the landlord and not to the store owner,
it's not a good look.
We're not ever going to have a successful marketplace.
Yeah.
And then of course we need to bring legacy, and I'm really delighted, Mr. Night Watchman, to hear that this is going on behind the scenes, and that's it needs to go on. It needs to be the big failure of cannabis in California is the fact that they didn't bring legacy into the process.
A lot of legacy in California actually went out of business, which is very sad.
Yes.
So you've given me a terrific idea, because I really want to reach out to the neighborhoods and the communities that are unhappy about their children being sold, having access to this untested product. And you've talked about the Black churches being at the forefront of that.
Yes.
So I have to unpack that, and maybe I need to talk to you offline and say, how do I do that?
And Night Watchman, I think on some level, Bruce might, if he hasn't already been introduced to Queen Mixie. What do you think?
Who do you think I met Queen Mixie from?
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I adore Queen Mixie. And hopefully she's going to listen to this and hear that.
Right.
Absolutely. We're going to make sure she does.
Yeah, please. No, she is, she is boots on the ground.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I hate to be using that kind of militaristic terminology, but
well, Bruce,
he is
remember,
in the schools.
That's
he
right.
is in the parent-teacher. The PTA meetings. She's in the community board meetings.
Yes.
She is,
all over. And Bruce, remember, we're coming out of a war on certain communities.
Yeah.
So boots on the ground is exactly what we're talking about. So
that's well said.
Absolutely.
Well said.
So Night Watchman, you taking us home?
Yeah, that's right. You've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us also on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Ask Siri, Ask Alexa, and come back and join us again. We're always on Monday nights. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us and sharing your information. Oh, and let me also just flash this information. If you want to follow up, you can send an email.
Anybody wants to take a photograph and send it to me, please.
Absolutely. You got it,
buddy. Ready to rock.
All right. And Night Watchman, I guess Bruce will also be invited back to the barbecue. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Bruce, my brother.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, guys.